Welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. Brought to you by Elite Consulting Partners, it's the only podcast offering unfiltered guidance and direct advice for all things concerning financial advisors, RIAs, and the practitioners in the wealth management business. Learn more and subscribe today at eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcast. And now, here's your host, Frank LaRosa.
This is great stuff, so we're going to keep going. So, again, as a former advisor and as an advisor listening to the show, what I just heard was you're going to bring in Dan. Now, my next question, my next thing in my mind is, what's that going to cost me?
Dan, not Dan, but
I'm going to suggest
an experienced advisor.
That's what I'm saying to it. I'm saying, if you're an advisor and you want to get into this space, it's great you want to get into the space, but don't screw it up by trying to get in by yourself.
Right.
There's, at least at Lincoln.
Don't get over your skis.
Right. Look, there's firms have support, and people have planning departments, and they're great. But sometimes they just basically kick out a boilerplate.
Right.
Listen, I've seen this since and the number changes, everything else.
Here's the model portfolio.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
My point is, if you're going to get into the space, you should be working with a firm that has the team behind you. That one, you can have confidence to enter their space, but two, has people that are there that can actually help you so you don't screw it up.
Right.
No
do-overs.
You're going to only get one shot with a high net worth client. You're only going to get one shot.
No, it's over.
So as an example, so I have roughly 30 clients personally.
Okay.
I picked up 3 this year. I $80 million and $240 million.
Right.
$40,000 fee.
Some advisors they wouldn't get that in their lifetime. In their career.
$40,000 fee, $40,000 fee, $60,000 fee. I don't work any of those by myself.
Right.
Why? The client's going to get a better experience. I've never had to worry about what I'm going to get compensated on that. The original case that I brought 2 other advisors in, and you know both of them very well, $250 million family. I'm like, hey, Frank, would you be interested in working with me on this case? And Dan, would you be, I think there's got to be $100,000 in this somehow. This is what I was thinking going in.
Right.
2 years later, all the implementation, the gifting strategies, all the estate stuff, they haven't sold the business, by the way. Great relationship, about $900,000 for each of the 3 of us. That was the implementation on that particular case.
That was the commissions.
Now, if I was just thinking, I'm just going to go do it all myself because I can make $3 million on it. A, it's arrogant. B,
You made $900,000 each.
We made $900,000 each.
Amen.
Yeah. that's exactly what
Doing well by doing good.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. Look, that's the whole
But
point.
most
That's right.
importantly, that client got a better experience. What Mike can do and what Todd can do, the 3 of us together can do it better than any one of us can do it alone.
Right.
That model inside of Lincoln is fairly.
There's a lot
That
of.
client wants to sell the business. There's no way he's not working with you guys.
There's no way he's not
correct.
working with us.
There's such a culture of collaboration, whether it's joint work, and joint work is never forced on anybody. It's voluntary, right? But it's our meetings, our conferences, our ongoing training. There's always this spirit of sharing best practices. It's not, I came up with this great idea, but I'm not going to show anybody else.
We're going to take 10%.
I don't view anyone as, we don't view each other as competitors.
Right.
In a rising tide, right, all ships rise. So there's this constant collaboration, idea sharing, best practices. Lincoln not only encourages study groups, and I'm in 2, they even pay for our study groups, travel, and to a certain amount, whatever it is, 500 plus another 1,500 for practice builder.
France was over the top.
That one I had to come out of pocket a little bit, but I mean, they just nurture and encourage this national sort of collaboration.
So you have this group of 200 advisors that you're mentioning before, the private wealth group. So let's talk. Just for a few
there's
about
thousands of advisors with
Can I give you
Lincoln.
one quick example before we jump there? Big guy, bank channel, $3.5 million of GDC.
Advisor.
Right. Coming over to us, he starts December, so a month from now, give or take. Wealth manager, that's what they do. You could, no, we do estate planning. No,
you're an asset manager.
Not really. You're an asset manager. But he's going to go out, he has a handful of $100 million clients.
Right.
Are you going to go out and say to them, hey, I know it's all been wealth management, but because I changed my business card, now I'm an expert at business succession, estate planning,
overnight,
charitable giving.
I've never had one conversation.
Just add water.
You're going to say that to a $100 million guy, and he's going to go, you're a fraud.
Right.
You're lying to my face, and I'm not going to work with you. For him to come over, part of his agreement with us, his engagement letter to what we paid him up front
Sure.
to move over to Lincoln, was that the first 5 cases, he would work with somebody. That
Right.
was his requirement, not mine.
Right.
So what we're doing, this is in Florida, we've got a number of these top 200 advisors that are private wealth that are going to work with him on that case. He's already got the money under management, so they're not going to share that.
Right.
But what that fee that they charge, they'll share that.
Right.
What they're doing with some of the other implementation, they'll share that. But this is money that he's never seen, and he
Right.
doesn't have the skill or capability to do that.
Sure.
But I'm using that as an example of somebody that's in the sweet spot into this private wealth space that we work in, right? He's obviously
Then his
got
story
the-
really can be he's making the move, and because he hasn't gotten involved in it in the past, and he's wanted to.
Here's why.
Here's why
I've
I'm an asset manager,
chosen-
I've chosen,
Yeah.
and here's my team.
Here's
Exactly.
exactly what he says to his
Right.
client.
Right.
I'm making this move with you in mind.
Right.
We've
Right.
done great work at ABC
That's right.
Yeah.
Bank, but I've always thought there's more to you than just the wealth management.
Yeah.
And I don't have that expertise, but these guys do. So I literally made the move, Frank, with you in mind.
Yeah.
So here's what I'd like to do is set up a time next week
great
where
story.
we could get together with so
No,
and so.
they're gonna go, okay.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
because you trust me and we've
Right.
got a good relationship, and now we bring in, let's just say it was Dan, but Dan and myself, being the guy that just moved over, are going to see you, the $100 million prospect, or existing client really of mine. But Dan is going to position me as that key relationship still.
Right.
But the two of us are going to work on it. I'm going to depend on his expertise and his experience, and you're going to get a better end result.
Sure.
And then you're going to say, you know what, there's a couple other people I think you ought to talk to. That's our business model. Every person that I work with, those 3 that I talked about that I picked up, they were from a client that we picked up 2 years ago
Right.
in the same industry niche. You should talk to these guys. He's like, can you come out? They're in California. Can you come out to our Christmas party? I'm like, I guess so. We had other business that was being done, but it was like a conveyor belt. He was just introducing us to
Yeah.
other people. That's our business model, very intentionally. If you and I were to work together, as an example, I would say, in addition to how we're paid, 10 to 20 basis points person's net worth exclusive of their insurance, depending on the complexity of their affairs. Sorry for the fast talk there. I've said that.
Write that down.
I've said it 8 million
Sit
times.
playback.
But the other way that we're compensated is your active goodwill in introducing me to people that are just like you. And so,
Right.
Frank, when I say that, yeah, let's say you were 10 million. I'm going to say, oh, it's 10 to 50 million. But that's not the most important thing, Frank. I want to work with people just like you because of the character of person that you are, how you treat your employees.
Right.
I've seen how you treated your brother in that situation that happened, 6 months ago. That's the kind of guy I want to work with. So
Right.
when we're done and you feel like you've had the best experience of your life in working with a financial professional, my hope is you might introduce us to, I don't know, 2 or 3 handful of people. And that's exactly what happens.
Did you hear what Russ just said? This is, every word is intentional.
Oh yeah, hear it.
This is not an accident. This is not winging it. And this is part of what he trains people in Lincoln how to do.
Or people that are coming to Lincoln.
Right. This is how you ask for introductions. What I have found
And that,
is,
excuse me, that's in the first meeting.
yeah,
Yeah.
No,
right.
the first
It's how we
meeting,
get paid.
This is how we're paid.
There's an
This is how-
expectation.
Listen, the reality is they're thinking about that.
Well,
Right? I mean, we do that with our clients. A lot of times, our
Yes.
clients, especially our larger clients, as we're helping them and we're agnostic to that, they want to know
Yeah.
how we're getting paid. I tell them,
Right. Right.
just
But-
get it out of the way.
most advisors wing it. And I don't mean totally wing it.
On the
Yeah, I'm a good
referral
Yeah,
piece
so
too.
like, hey, if you know anybody
Most
that could use my
people,
help,
Yeah.
Can I say this? Most people suck
Yeah,
at
most-
getting
Oh,
referrals.
totally.
And sometimes it's accidental, or it's just their client who likes them is experiencing a life event and it comes to them.
Yeah, it's like
But it's not
yeah.
intentional.
And it's
Right.
not, but it's not
Well, the
intentional.
biggest
And that's
trick in our-
fine.
the biggest unicorn in our business is how to ask for referral success.
It's uncomfortable.
easy, and it's not
It's
uncomfortable.
hard. Well, if you don't know how.
What I found.
If you don't know
what I found as
how,
an
it's
advisor,
uncomfortable.
When I was an advisor, I used to get a fair amount of referrals, and I learned this from some program I went to when I was younger. I was in our 20s. When you
Yeah.
give them a specific idea, I almost said kid. I was a kid.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
25 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
When you give them specific things, like if you have a friend that is retiring or just got notice and they're starting about the 401k, if you're giving them things tangibles, because in their mind they're going, as you're saying it, they're going, oh yeah, John or Bill or
Sometimes that's a transaction-oriented introduction,
right.
as opposed to, I just want to meet somebody like you.
Right.
And if I give you that net worth number, so it's no coincidence that the guy introduced us to a 40, and an 85 million. It was because I said, he's about 45 million, the guy that introduced us, Jimmy.
Right.
And I'm like, Jimmy, these are the kind of people I want to meet.
We're just calling him Jimmy, that's not his real name.
Yeah, well, you can try and track all the Jimmys. And figure out who it is, right?
Confidentiality. Okay, we need the cone of
Jimmy
silence.
from California, I should be.
Right.
But saying to him, 2 or 3 handful of people that are just like you, and if he's 40 million, I'm saying 40 to 250.
Right.
And 2 or 3 handful, like Dan said, that's very, when I say that, I didn't say 10 or 15. I said very conversational. It's almost like I'm making it up on the fly. It's all rehearsed.
Oh, because when I was because we were at Lincoln, you said 2 or 3 handful. You say that every single time.
Handful.
2 or 3 handful.
Handful. Right.
If you ask Dan how many times he's heard me say 2 or 3 handful, he would say hundreds.
A handful of times.
So a friend of mine, this guy named Ed Milet, says, in order to be successful, you say old things to new people.
Exactly.
That's right.
Why reinvent the wheel?
Right.
If it works, they never heard it before. They never heard it. And then the other key thing too is, okay, what to say to get the introductions, helping them identify qualified introductions, but then the connection, because here's what happens a lot of times if you don't use this process. Oh yeah, I got a couple of people I'm thinking of, let me call them.
Yeah. Right.
Now the financial advisor is trying to sell your services to their friend or acquaintances. That never works.
Never. So we have to control that by telling you what works best.
Right.
So if I say 2 or 3 handfuls, you're like, oh great, I'll call a couple people. Maybe I can get a golf match with us, or a lunch, or a cup of coffee. And I'm like, so Frank, can I tell you what works and what doesn't work? So what works is it's the simplest. It takes you out of the middle right away. It gives me the best opportunity for success. And here's what it looks like. It's very simple. It's an email from you to Dan, and it says, hey, Dan, saw you at the board meeting last week or on the golf course or whatever it is, meant to mention Russ Jones to you. He and I have been doing some really sophisticated work over the last 3 or 4 years. I think it would be great if you guys had a chance to meet each other.
Golden.
Here's Russ's email and phone number. Russ, here's Dan's email and phone number.
Now it's not on Jimmy to try to handle objections.
Took you 10 minutes to do. Now I've got 10 or 15 people. Who's better at telling Dan what I do than me? Are you going to be able to? You're going to say to him, oh, he helped me with my investments, or he helped me sell my business, or he helped me with some insurance, whatever it is. And you're going to give this much, and he's going to say, I'm all set.
I'm all set. I have the great attorney. I have a great accountant.
Oh, yeah, Frank said you just.
We're all good.
I call
Thanks for bringing it up, though, Frank. I appreciate it.
Yeah. If I say it to Dan, he's going to say the same thing, and I'm going to laugh at him. I'm going to go,
well, we know how to counter it, right?
Frank said when I first met him.
Yeah, that's the great.
Do me a favor.
Frank said the same thing. Frank, that he was all taken care of.
Do me a favor.
Frank was fat, dumb, and happy.
Yeah. Let's sit down for 30 minutes. Let's see what comes up.
You look good, Frank. You look good.
You're still in your car.
That's funny.
But because we've anticipated all those things, so Cerulli and Company, right?
Yeah.
Did a study. No, Eastbridge Consulting our top advisors. Let's call it 2 million and above versus 500 and below. What were the 2 differentiators? One, the best advisors anticipated better and they were decisive. Well, what I'm demonstrating to you is anticipating you giving me introductions and saying, I'll control it. I'll get a golf match with you. So I anticipate that, I'm decisive, and then I'm going to tell you, here's what works and here's what doesn't work. You trying to do that isn't going to work because Dan's going to tell you, I've got it all done, and you don't want to push the relationship. So if we do it this way, now I'm telling Dan, that's exactly what Frank said. Let's just spend 30 minutes, let's see what happens. And Dan says yes, and now I tell him that story, the approach talk that we were talking about earlier. It's confidential. Nothing will leave this room unless you ask me to speak to somebody on your behalf. Does that sound like what I said?
We're going to ask and answer questions.
Exactly
Then they start answering questions, and this is a little bit of a sales trick, right? They're talking about themselves. And so they feel like it was a great meeting.
That, right?
Because they spent all the time talking about
the star.
And then I'm showing them
we're asking questions.
Some value why we should spend another hour together or 2 hours together in a few weeks.
Well, the reality is you also, and I tell a lot of my folks here, and it's a general thing, right? You can tell a lot about somebody and their intelligence and their knowledge by the questions that they ask.
Absolutely.
Right.
He who asks the questions is controlling the meeting.
Right.
That's how you control the meeting.
So the other thing I'll point out, Frank, so I've been doing this a long time. There's no other firm. I've interviewed hundreds of people, right? I've competed against hundreds of different either boutiques or national firms. There's nobody that's doing the things that we're talking about right here.
Right.
That this is how you secure a new high net worth client. It's not by the colored glossy brochures and whatnot. It's taking their specific situation, having a team that can analyze that, putting together an executive summary, just a series of notes that lead to a sale that I control the conversation of. You're not going to get a book from Dan that gives you 2 paragraphs on this part of your buy-sell agreement or this part of your investment portfolio. It's going to say something like this. I'll just use a quick example. Let's say, to take a simplified, easy thing, you're 60, you want to retire at 65. You've saved $1 million. That puts you in the top maybe 2% of the population. And you're telling me you and your wife need $100,000 a year for the rest of your life. That's in our first meeting. And I go, well, wait a second. If he wants to retire in 5 years, 65, let's say they make it to 95, that's 30 years, $100,000, they need $3 million, you've saved $1 million. Hey, Frank, you're short $2 million. Can you tell me a little bit about your plan to make up that $2 million in the next 5 years? First meeting.
Yeah.
Right? And you're going to go,
Hamina.
My so-and-so at the wirehouse has gone over all that with me. Oh, what did he say? Or the guy at the bank went over it with me. What did he say? Right. And you're going to go, I don't have a good answer. So I'm not saying we're going to work together, Frank, but if we did, is this something we should look at in more detail?
Sure.
And if I can go through 5 or 6 or 7 of those kind of things in the first meeting with you, and now you give me that hard data, and now the team analyzes it, and we come back with a bullet point that says, here's what the bullet point would say on that retirement one. It would say 60-65. That's all I need to remember that you wanted to retire 5 years from now. Comma, it'll be a $sign with $100K, $100,000 a year, comma, $1 with an M, 1 million. I know that you said, that's all I need. You don't need to understand it. You're going to look at an executive summary that has written what I just said, and it's going to take a half of a line of a piece of paper, not 3 paragraphs. Hey, Frank, I looked at your retirement objectives. You've saved $1 million. You're age 65 with your wife now. All this stuff written out together. What am I going to do when you look at that? Are we going to read it together? I got done with that in 3rd grade.
You don't need a 30-page engagement proposal.
I'm going to use it as a presentation tool that increases the likelihood of me being hired. It's a sales enhancer, not a sales inhibitor.
Right.
I write 3 paragraphs, sales inhibitor.
It also decreases the let me read that 30-page proposal and get back to you.
Yeah,
let me send it to my accountant, attorney, my landscaper, my plumber, and let everyone else weigh in on it.
My brother-in-law look at it.
Yeah, my brother-in-law who works at
UPS.
The magic
not
is
UBS.
the magic is I'm looking at that line. I know exactly what I'm going to say and do and how I'm going to say and do it with you before I open my mouth.
Right.
And you look at it and you're going to go, oh, I get what he's saying, 60 to 65, $1 million. How you get, and the $2 million M is going to be in red because that's your shortage.
Right.
And I'll disturb you in that second meeting, and I'll give you one more reason why you're going to write a check to me for $5,000, $10,000, $50,000, whatever the number happens to be. That's how we work. That's our process. Everybody has a process. So you can't compare one versus the other.
Yeah, I think that, look, and we'll wrap this up because we're definitely way over. But it's okay, this is great stuff, and right to the end here, right? But the reality is, and I work with all the firms out there, and there are some firms that sort of dip their toe in this water.
Right.
Some firms do the M&A, or they have a financial planning team. Very few, if any, right, do it as a team effort, right? And do it on a consistent basis. It's sort of I'll call it M&A by accident, right? They trip over it. They're doing some financial planning, but they're not really getting into everything. And they certainly don't have teams that will work with the advisors.
Right.
As you were talking about this, and I'm thinking about the joint fees and all that stuff. If I was an advisor coming over to the firm, I would look at those split fees as an investment in your future, because you're only going to need to team up with somebody maybe 4
and it's
or 5
going to be a
times.
higher fee.
And
your half may be more.
You're getting it, right? right? And you might be able to charge them, $50,000 to do it on your own. But if you bring in a team and you're going to charge $150,000,
exactly. A guy in my office was going to charge a $2,500 fee, asked me to get involved. I looked at the situation, met with the client, saw the complexity, saw the moving parts that he didn't recognize, and I charged a $25,000 fee.
Right.
So he got $12,500. It was a heck of a lot more. But it's not a matter of, I pumped up the fee. The client was appreciative.
Oh, yeah.
And we did way more than he expected. He says, I never thought you guys could do this.
Advisors are scared.
They're scared. Sure. Well, it is scary.
Scared is a lack of confidence.
As a business owner myself, I can speak to this. I know the value of getting that kind of advice, and I can quantify what it's going to save me. Right. And if to that level, $25,000 is not a lot of money. I mean,
it's a
we
piece
blow
of
that
cake
on marketing and advertising.
Right.
That's our engagement.
Do our clients go to the cheapest restaurant in town? Do they drive the cheapest car? Do they go on the cheapest vacations? No. They're accustomed to getting concierge level service, and they pay for quality.
And they pay for it.
They pay for quality. So, why do they want the cheapest advisor on the street? They don't. And there's no free lunch.
The best advice possible, and they want people to know, and you get that. You get those fees because you have confidence that you're going to deliver, that you have the backing to deliver that, and therefore you can ask for it. And then, again, I know we're talking about these fees. What you as advisors are forgetting about is you're getting the assets from the client. You're going to get by the way, while we're doing all this stuff, why don't we move the $30 million that you have at Merrill, or the $10 million? Don't you have an account at Schwab that you've been sitting there? Yeah, how much is it? It's like $2 million. Well, let's move that over.
Let's consolidate.
Right? You start consolidating things because from a business owner's perspective, I want simplicity. Right. I want everything under one place.
One trusted
I want a
advisor
quarterback that's going to run it for me.
Right.
There's a book that everyone should read called Who, Not How. It's written by Dan Sullivan and one other guy. It's all about not how you're going to do this, but who's going to do it for you as a business owner. And you guys become the who.
That's right.
And how do I structure, how am I going to structure my estate planning and succession planning? It's who's going to help me do that?
This is our unique ability.
Right.
It is.
There you go.
So 5 years was canceled. I get that.
Yes.
If you read any of his books, you'll understand what that means. So anyway.
We'll have advisors that we're interviewing, right? Considering coming over to Private Wealth Services. I'm like, give me your tired, your week, and your give me your ideal client. Take the names off, scrub everything. Give us the information that you have. Let us show you what we would be showing to them to justify that fee. Let us show you what the problems are in their current plan. And now you tell me, as an advisor, do you really care about that client? And so...
Yeah, look, the reality is they're doing it with somebody. They're doing it with somebody.
Might as well be you.
They're actually not doing it.
Or they're not doing it. That's even worse. They don't know what they don't know.
They're not doing it,
They don't know what they don't know, so they just go on their merry way. We don't have time, but I just got to introduce.
Yeah, but how many times?
so many examples.
How many times, as an advisor, and if you're listening to this as an advisor, which I'm sure you are, you get that call, which you don't want to get. It's, hey Dan, I love you, man. You've done a great job for me. But. I'm moving my account because financial plan, estate planning, blah 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 blah, holistic. And
I sold my business. I didn't know you did that.
I didn't know you did that. Right.
That's the other thing you don't want to hear is I didn't know you did that.
I had a client, an advisor. I won't use his name. It was that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I didn't know you did that. You did a deal with a client. The client borrowed a lot of money.
Yeah.
And the advisor comes to me and says, "Oh yeah, Dr. Such and Such did this thing." I'm like, the next time, I said, you need to go back to him and you need to tell him, hey, listen, the next time you're looking for capital, I love to compete for that business, right? And I gave him the whole script to do it. He goes, yeah, why would he do that? He's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, because it's cheap money and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So he does. Client says, oh, I didn't know you did that.
There you go.
Right? A month later, gets a call. All right, here's your shot. There's a $65 million loan.
Oh.
Right. We brought in, I think $40 or $50 million from another firm in order to get the better rate. Right.
There you go.
And by the way,
nice inducement.
All those assets went into an advisory business.
Yeah.
Right, where he was collecting his 75 basis points or whatever.
A career changer.
Yeah, but it's having the conversation. So anyway, we're going off on a. we can, like I said, we can have these conversations.
Part 2 next week.
Yeah, part 2. Right. Anyway, Listen, the reality is, I work with a lot of companies, and when I was introduced to you a few months ago, I didn't realize, and I worked with Lincoln. We've moved some really good advisors to Lincoln, but even I never knew that you had this capability, right? Which is a huge opportunity for advisors, even to just talk to prospects or clients about the ability to be able to do this, right? They may not want to do it right this second, but if they know you can do it, at least you stand a chance of getting a phone call.
Yes.
Not the, I just did a transaction. I didn't even know you did this.
I had no idea. I didn't know you could help me.
I would have totally worked with you.
Yeah, I would have preferred.
Right?
Well, you're saying
sorry
that about Lincoln.
Yeah.
I'll give you $5 million on my $80 million business.
Yeah, I'll let you compete on a piece of the investments now that it's all done. Yeah, maybe
Right.
This is why I say it's the best kept secret.
Right.
And what you just said is exactly true, right? I didn't know that Lincoln did that. You're saying the same thing as the guy with the investment.
Right.
The,
so my point to the audience here is if you're thinking about making a move because you're trying to figure out ways to grow your practice, maybe you've outgrown the firm that you're at because you used to do 500,000, now you're doing a couple million, and whatever, you got some independent broker dealer. Lincoln is a tremendous option. Even if you're not thinking about making a move, this is the business that you need to be in, because this market has continued to grow.
God.
Businesses,
The
that were little
demographics,
businesses,
the baby boomers. I mean,
all these
$5 million revenue
businesses, they wake up overnight and they're doing 20 million, and the business is worth $80 million bucks, right? Like, it's all over the place. So you need to be thinking about doing this. So how do they get in touch with you guys? So what's the best way if advisors listening to this, like, I want, aside from obviously calling me,
That's exactly right.
856-4651 and Frank at consultingpartners.com.
Operator standing by, right?
Operator standing by, right. Don't forget to check out my podcast, which is FrankLaRosa.elite. But if they want to reach out to you and they have some questions, maybe they just want to dip their toe in the water to see if you're legit. Like, hey, I might be interested in making a move, but how would you handle this particular client?
Right.
How do they get in touch with you?
I mean, seriously, the first step would be you.
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, honest to God, that's the first step. I think a second step would be, either an email or a phone call to somebody like me.
Okay.
So
What's your email address?
So it's russ.jones@LFG, LincolnFinancialGroup.com.
Got it. Okay.
So that, or a phone call, right?
Yeah.
303-501-9690. I don't think there's any operator standing by.
And Dan, how about you?
To spell out my whole last name, so it's Dan Prisciotta, PRISCIOTTA @LFG.com.
That'll all be in the link, by the way.
It'll all be in there. You can have my cell number, 201-819-3911. I take phone calls all the time. Happy to talk to somebody, give you as much advice and input as I can, and then maybe, refer you to someone who does this on a more full-time basis than me.
Awesome. Listen, this was awesome. We were excited about doing this. We did a call, I think it was 2 days ago, just like a prep call, and that one went almost an hour or something like that. Because it's a great topic. It's exciting. It's doing good for people.
Absolutely.
Right? And the end benefit is
They
to make money,
need it.
but they need it.
And it's a differentiator.
Right.
If you're an advisor, that's the name of the game right now. How do I differentiate myself from 1,000 other guys that are out there doing the same
and
thing?
being a good asset manager is not it.
It's not it.
It's valuable,
Yeah,
but it's not going to
everyone is.
differentiate.
It's yesterday.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, anyway, listen, thanks for joining. We appreciate everybody that stayed on. We appreciate the audience. If you're new to this, you definitely want to go back, listen to this. There was a lot of great content in this. I haven't done something like this in a while, so I really appreciate it.
You got it going, Frank.
Yeah.
You were able to pull it out of us. We're usually very quiet, so you drew us out of our shell.
We're both shy.
Yeah, you're very shy. I know. Yeah.
Not passionate about what we do. Yeah.
Right. No, neither am I. I've been told that I don't talk enough. So, anyway, thanks for joining the show, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Frank.
Thanks for listening to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. If you're looking for more advice or solutions on any topics in the financial services industry, or you just want to subscribe to our podcast, head on over to eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcasts.